Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. So, I've been on a bit of a relationship kick lately, and that's because there's a Harvard study done over 75 years, 75 plus years at this point, and they found that one of the biggest contributors to happiness was our relationships. Now, I know what you're thinking. We're 476 episodes in. Why are we just now getting to relationships if it's one of the biggest contributors to our happiness? Well, that's because I believe that you need to have a relationship with yourself first, and we can't look externally for validation of our happiness. However, our relationships can have a big impact on our happiness, which is why the last several weeks have been themed around the relationships in our lives. But there's one thing I haven't really touched on, and that's what relationships have the biggest impact on our lives. And that's what I want to talk about this week. And specifically today, I want to talk about your spouse. So, that said, if you tune into last week's theme weeks of episodes or theme week of episodes, then you know that was all about how to have a happier romantic relationship. But if you are feeling like your relationships are impacting your happiness, one of the first places to look is your spouse. Now, that is not me saying that your spouse is the root of your problems and that you are not happy because of them. That's not it at all. What I'm asking you to do is look at that relationship and identify where you would improve. Because I don't know about you, but I tend to be like, oh, well, he just needs to fix it. It's almost like there's this pride that comes into play that it's like, I'm not happy in the relationship and it's his fault, right? Or your partner. I'm using his because my partner is my husband who's male. But whatever romantic relationship you are in, we tend to not look at ourselves and we want to look at the other person to fix the problem. Air quotes around that, right? Or we go the other way and we think it's all us and we're a mess and we're broken and we're just so honored that they love us and so grateful that we can be unhappy because it's just as good as it's gonna get. I don't think either of those sounds like the kind of relationship, if we source back to last week's theme week, I don't think either of those are happier relationships. They're not built on trust. They're not built on honesty and respect and expectations and alignment, right? That's built on feeling like you're not worthy or feeling so entitled that they're the problem and they need to fix it. Now, again, preface to all of this, if it is an abusive relationship in some way, shape, or form, this material does not count for you. If you're in an abusive situation, please get yourself out. Do not continue to try to fix it. It's just not worth it if you're getting physically, mentally, or emotionally abused, in my opinion. So, if you are not in those situations and you have a somewhat healthy relationship, but you'd like it to be better, or you're unhappy in your relationship, then I want you to take a look at this. So, relationships impacting your happiness. We either tend to blame ourselves entirely and want to fix everything wrong with us, wrong, air quotes again, or we want to entirely blame our spouse and have them fix everything wrong with them and the relationship. But here's the thing. Well, I want to source back to last week's theme week. I think if you were going to take one thing to build upon last week, to make sure that you have a happier life and a happier relationship, it's to change your communication habits with your spouse. And here's what I mean by that. When we take all the blame, our spouse can feel, or our partner can feel guilty or feel like, oh, well, you're just solving it, that's fine. Like, she's unhappy, she's working on it. If we go the other way, then they take on the full brunt of the load and feel like it's all their fault. And they're either going to be like, no, it's you, and now we're playing the blame game. Or they go into that other mode that we just talked about you maybe, and where they're trying to fix everything and it just doesn't seem to work. Well, the reason it doesn't seem to work is because you're not clearly communicating with each other. You're not saying, hey, I feel a little unhappy and I'm sure it's me and I'm going to be working on some things, but But I'm also wondering if we can communicate a little bit better, and if maybe we can work on some things together. I am making strides in my own happiness, and I just want to be able to make sure that our relationship is part of that I'm happy in that as well. It's funny because when my partner and I first got together, we actually were both married to other people before. And so we picked up some habits when things weren't going very well. And one of his was when we would be arguing, he would storm out of the room. Well, you can bet your buttons that would just throw me through the roof. I am talking to you and you leave? How dare you, right? And so then it would be like chasing him out into the hallway and being like, what are you doing? Don't walk away from me. And it would just be this big problem. Well, when I finally communicated that, hey, this actually really bothers me when we fight. Can we work on it? Like, I'm not demanding perfection because I know it's a habit, but can we work on it? And here's the crazy, funny, ironic part, is when he started working on not storming out during fights, what do you think I started to do? I started to storm out during fights. It was like, I hated it, but then I liked the feeling of walking away because it felt powerful, and I wanted to pay him back because it was a win or lose situation. And then when he communicated to me like, hey, I'm working hard on not storming out, and here you are storming out. It makes it really difficult. Then I was like, oh, yeah, I'm doing it too. Okay, yes, let's work on this. And then it would become changing the communication style. Being in an argument and taking that small presence of mind to go, okay, I really want to walk out right now, but I'm not going to. And then that might just be like, oh, okay. And then maybe you guys take a breath and things kind of come into settle. Or the opposite happens, but I'm hoping it's not the opposite where it's like, well, then walk out, because then you have to say, no, I'm standing my ground. I'm here to talk. We promised each other we would do this. Change your communication style so that those habits of how you communicate can change. The habit of storming out, I communicated, he started to change, and then I took it up, and then he communicated, and I started to change. We can change our communication habits with our spouse, and it can deeply impact our happiness, our personal happiness, in a big way. And next week, I'm going to go into what I call the rubber band effect and how that impacts relationships. But for right now, of the 5 relationships that are impacting your personal happiness, if you have a romantic partner, a spouse, that relationship is the biggest and closest one to us. So if you are feeling like it's impacting your happiness in a negative way, communicate that, but communicate it without blame. And what I mean by that is without blaming yourself and without blaming them. But just openly communicate about how you want to improve and brainstorm together. Be a partnership. For so long, I felt like I was the one broken in my relationship. I felt like I was the one that had to fix everything. And when I finally kind of put down that, I'm going to say it's a form of pride, but it was a miserable form of pride. That idea that it's all my fault. I'm the one that's broken. I'm the one that needs fixing. When I could put down that mantle and just say, you know what, I want to be happier in my relationships, and maybe I just need to communicate a little differently. That's when things started to shift, and I think one of the many reasons that I started to be happier. So I'm going to leave you with that today. Again, kind of going back to that relationship piece. If you did not check out last week's episodes 471 through 475, be sure to check it out. I have a couple leading up to that as well. And this week we'll be talking about those other relationships that impact our happiness, not only our spouse, but our family, our best friend or friends, friend groups, our coworkers, and then our community. Those 5 relationships deeply impact our relationships and kind of cover the full gamut. Deeply impact our happiness and cover the full gamut. So stay tuned for the rest of this week. And if you like this episode or you had questions about it, let me know. You can find me at happinessabound.com, Happiness Abound blog on Facebook, and happiness_abound on Instagram. So I'm going to leave you with that today. Check out that relationship, see if it's impacting your happiness, change your communication, and above everything else, remember, You are capable of happiness abound.